So this right here is it's the center of the Nullarbor Plains in Australia, and well, it's home to nothing. It's an area which stretches roughly 1,100 kilometers and covers the majority of the Australian continent, an area which is actually known to have a greater population of kangaroos than humans. This was day 15 out of my 32-day journey. I was alone and roughly 140 kilometers away from any point of civilization, and I was dangerously running low on food, water. I was suffering from severe fatigue and occasional hallucination. Now, at that point in time, I felt like I was this close to my death. Just another day at the office? Well, I suppose not. And if I had to tell you that the expression on my face whilst taking this very photograph was one of pure joy, would you call me crazy? Well, I don't blame you, as every time I look at this photo, it makes me wonder how I'm still alive and how I'm here talking to you today. Now, when it comes to pain, psychologist Brock Bastian probably said it best when he expressed how pain is a kind of shortcut to mindfulness. It makes us suddenly aware of everything in our environment. It brutally draws us in to our sensory awareness of the world, much like meditation. Now, this is the case. The Dalai Lama had nothing on me for those 32 days. I had transformed myself into the ultimate monk. Before we get into why anyone would ever want to find themselves in this kind of situation, allow me to backtrack and give you just a short insight into my journey. I was fortunate enough to attend a fantastic university in the UK, where I was quickly drawn into this great environment surrounded by incredible characters from all over the world. So all in all, I pretty much had the time of my life. Despite this, as the end of my degree neared, I just realized how I wasn't quite ready to file up in line and join the march to capitalism that so many of my lecturers just constantly went on about. I vividly remember this particular instance when, after my graduation ceremony, I walked into the restroom and there was this towering mirror which just stopped me in my tracks. And I remember looking at myself and just asking myself, who am I? And where is all of this taking me? I felt at this point in my life I had found myself in some form of overcrowded London underground, filled with doom and gloom, filled with people who seemed to be heading somewhere, but ultimately pretty much nowhere. Now, I was determined to get as far away from these very train tracks and seek the road less traveled. A road that I quickly found was filled with confusion, pain, suffering, yet ultimately pure freedom. Now, looking back, I remember feeling like a deer in the headlights. I was utterly confused with the world around me and also the world ahead of me. Nevertheless, I committed myself to awakening that inner creative. Now, I did this as a means to just cleanse my mental state of being. I found this incredible connection with photography, and I linked it with my passion for the ocean and adventure. And I remember feeling like for the first time in my life, I had found that inner voice, the inner voice that we all have. And boy, did I let it scream. I was determined to explore this newfound world of mine, and I pretty much set out to do just that. I literally sold everything that I had, and I booked a one-way ticket out of Malta in search of pure adventure. So I found myself in incredible locations, capturing unforgettable moments. From photographing Olympic gold medalist swimmers to professional sailors and even surfers. I mean, to me, this was it. I started to live the life that I only ever dreamt of. Yet as time passed by, I started to realize how there was just this one problem. You see, the more time I spent traveling around to these exotic locations, the less gratifying it seemed to be. It was quite confusing. But I set out seeking adventure, yet I soon realized how I was merely seeing that through my lens, and I was determined to jump on the other side of the fence. I began craving wild open spaces and aimed to seek out a new challenge, a challenge that would aim to challenge me from both a mental and a physical standpoint. So I decided to put my camera aside and set out to go on this inner personal journey. I set out to cycle across the Australian continent, a distance of roughly 4,200 kilometers. Now you're probably asking the question, like why, you know? Well, I kind of had no idea at the time, and to be honest, I kind of still don't have the answer to that question. Yet I recently came across this interview by George Mallory, which I found to be quite relevant to this very question. Now, Mallory was the first person to have attempted to climb Mount Everest. And prior to the climb, Mallory went on to say the following. The first question you will ask, and what I will try to answer, is this: what is the use of climbing Mount Everest? And my answer must at once be, it is of no use. There is not the slightest prospect of any gain whatsoever. He went on to say, we may learn a little about the behavior of the human body at high altitudes, and possibly medical men may turn our observation to some account for the purposes of aviation. But otherwise, nothing will come of it. We shall not bring back a single bit of gold or silver, not a gem, nor any coal or iron. Yet if you cannot understand that there is something in man which responds to the challenge of the mountain and goes up to meet it, that the struggle is a struggle of life itself, upward and forever upward, then you won't see why we go. What we get from this adventure is just sheer joy. And joy is, after all, the end of life. We do not live to eat and make money. We eat and make money to be able to live. That is what life means, and that is what life is for. Now, it's probably quite important to also mention the fact that prior to this expedition, my experience with biking was associated with leisurely bike rides through the northeast countryside, lasting not more than an hour. So, and as this image depicts, this was far from your average weekend ride. So, a lot of experts were saying, this is impossible for you to do. And my grandmother certainly wasn't too amused about the idea. But on I went, choosing to ignore all advice and warnings that came my way, and decided to go ahead and plan this expedition meticulously. Now, reflecting on this, it started to make me realize how much of our lives are controlled by fear. Fear of the unknown, and more importantly, the fear of losing. What I learned, though, is that if you are afraid of losing, and that's what I feel we all are every day of our lives, afraid of losing our material possessions, and even afraid of losing the way society thinks we should be. If you're afraid of losing, you will never, ever win. It is only when the will to win overpowers that fear that we constantly have inside ourselves to lose, that you can ultimately go out there and venture into the unknown. So there I was on the 11th of April, 2015, on the morning of my departure, with roughly 25 kilos of supplies and gear, medical gear, all packed onto my bike. And I still remember, with the cheesiest grin on my face, I just rode into the unknown. Literally, I had absolutely no idea what I was about to get myself into. The first few days were tough. They were extremely tough. No matter how much more I had planned, nothing would have prepared me enough from both a mental and a physical standpoint. as you can imagine, both my mind and body were in shock. I mean, when you think about it, in an age where the average person is actively moving around and bombarded by so much information, there I was in the middle of nowhere, just cycling into the unknown. Yet, that in itself, if you think about it, is a phenomenal experiment. My mind started to become increasingly still, focusing on the smallest of details, even just my breath, which I use as a reference to calm my body down. Now, despite the harsh and unforgiving conditions, nothingness brought with it tranquility, and with that, an amazing peace of mind. Grueling days on the saddle were rewarded by phenomenal sunsets that left me sitting down in the middle of nowhere, in awe, sometimes even on the verge of tears. Come nightfall, camp would be set up, rations of freeze-dry food would be savored, and I'd read or take notes under my customized reading lamp, the infinite amount of stars. And I remember thinking to myself, this is it. This is why I'm doing it, unforgettable moments like these. However, the ride was not all plain sailing. Moments of sheer joy were also met by terrifying moments, moments that found me this close to my death, moments such as experiences such as finding myself caught in this incredible cyclone just on these very cliffs, which nearly found me being swept into the Southern Ocean. Or there was this one moment when I passed out at a gas station. I was just exhausted, and I was only to be woken up in an ambulance hooked up to an IV. So as you can imagine, it was tough. It was so damn tough, and I pretty much saw and felt it all. Yet somehow, just somehow, I kept on pushing. I kept on wanting to finish what I started. My body seemed to have had enough, clearly. My mind, on the other hand, was far from over. And so on I went, day after day, pushing the limits of what one would deem to be impossible, riding all the way to the Sydney Opera House. Now, in all honesty, the ride across Australia challenged me and humbled me so deeply. And I'm not quite sure I'll ever be able to put the entire experience into words. Yet the fact that I stand here before you is kind of proof that we can all answer that burning desire that we all have inside of ourselves to accomplish great things through passion, ambition, sheer stubbornness, by refusing to quit. The expedition had an incredibly profound effect on me. It made me look at things from such different angles, and this is something that I aim to transfer into my photography and writing. Now, this experience also made me think about that cliche, about the journey being more important than the destination. And the closer I got to Sydney, the more I started to realize that what this agonizingly long bike ride might be teaching me is that happiness is not a finish line. That for us humans, the perfection that so many of us constantly strive for and dream of might never, ever be truly attainable. And as coined by this fantastic polar explorer, Ben Saunders, if we cannot feel content here, now, amidst our journeys, during the mess and the striving, then we might not ever feel it. Unfortunately, we live in an incredibly shortcut-obsessed society, increasingly defined by these shrinking attention spans and this demand for instant gratification. We seemingly have developed this birthright to overnight weight loss programs and this professional success, envious wealth, limitless free time. Yet, what I realized is that ultimately, failure or success, or even the prospect of failure or success, is what gives our lives proper context. These tower emotional and spiritual stakes and fertilize our very soul for quantum growth, irrespective of the outcome. I realize, though, that growth can only come from earned investment in experience. So factors such as fear and commitment, these shouldn't be avoided or short-circuited. These should be embraced with everything that you are. and everything that you have. The limits that we impose on ourselves, these are all they're just mental projections, they're illusions. It is so important that we embrace the very possibility that we are all so much more than we allow ourselves to be. Now, there is no guarantee that this path would lead to success the way that society unfortunately defines the term. Yet I truly believe that raw and authentic experiences will infuse one's life with a sense of meaning and a sense of purpose that ultimately no shortcut can ever rival. True happiness. Now, I'm not talking about happiness in the sense of unicorns and rainbows. I'm talking about a deep satisfaction that your life, all your lives, has value, a value that can be served as inspiration, a service to others who feel stuck in their lives. Individuals who are alive, but ultimately just not living. So, nothing changes if nothing changes. And I realize how the journey to figuring out the how, that is the path to figuring out the big it. And this is the art of living with purpose. And this is what it means to be truly alive. A promise that no shortcut can give you. Not now, not ever. Thank you.